interviews with the panel. Then to get an email a couple days later saying that my candidacy was being dropped because my position on AI didn't agree with the goals that the executives wanted to take the corporation, which I thought was kind of strange because they were reaching out to an expert to get information because they didn't know, but because of all the things that were happening out in society, my purpose isn't to berate this company, it's just to illustrate the point that there's a lot of perhaps misconceptions or misalignments or mismatched expectations of what AI is and what it can offer. And so that's kind of what we want to address today because it's widespread and we're all going to face that in some way, shape, or form going through. So given that context, I'm going to start with an open question to all the panelists just to kind of tap into that thread. What is AI and what is AI not? Is AI intelligent? What is intelligence? Is it sentient? Is it alive by some standard? And by that means, does AI have rights? So any one of the panelists, go ahead, you can chime in on that.
I'll start by saying, Tony, you and I talked about this. I think the first time we spoke, AI has been around, since the 1950s, I believe we talked about, right? I would say, when you think about AI today, it's, generative AI really sparked the recent, ChatGPT, things like that, just the interest level. So it's been around for a while. And, you talk about machine learning projects, technology solutions. These things have been around for some time. And I think a lot of things right now are just kind of being, put under that AI umbrella, right? So I think, it's important to kind of realize that as a business leader, to just kind of understand that it is something that has been around, for quite some time, but it's just kind of being brought to the forefront today through the new use of new tools like ChatGPT and other things like that. So I would start there. Just to, I don't know, Ganesh, or do you have any other thoughts? Anything that you'd like to share there?
Yeah, I would agree, right? AI has been there for a long time. It came into limelight, right, with all the open AI stuff. And so that's fascinating, right? Automation. So I was telling my son, right, when you go to Amazon, so the customers also bought this product. So there's some kind of engine running in the back, right? They're using the data, large data, the customer behaviors. So Amazon is able to predict the customer behavior, what they want to buy, what others they can their favorite items. Similarly, you go to Netflix, you watch a program, then you get prompts, right? So obviously this engine running, so kind of prompting that, right? So this has been there, and now it's getting into more limelight now.
Yeah. I would add to that. As a high schooler in 2016, I remember the first kind of cycle in my generation of the AI hype cycle coming through and then it dying down for a few years and then coming back. And I think what we've seen is that there's such a breadth in what could fit possibly within the term AI. I think something that's helpful to think about it is AI-ness as a term. So what level of AI sophistication is something being built with? Useful definition is being able to have a practical solution for making routine tasks less time consuming, or computer programs that can complete cognitive tasks typically associated with human intelligence. And that's a whole another question of, can these systems do things that can approximate human intelligence?
Yeah, that's right. It's fundamentally, I think that we probably all agree that at this point, AI is really nothing more than a set of algorithms. And to be truly intelligent, we have something called AGI, or artificial general intelligence, which is yet to come. But right now, it's just technology. But there's a lot of benefits that can come from it. And so diving into that, let's go into the topic of ethics in AI, because there's a lot of questions with how do we use AI ethically. So I'll target this one to Ganesh. What does it mean to be ethical with AI, and why is that important?
Yeah, I think it's AI with the technology advancement, right? One should also not lose sight of fairness and being avoid hallucination and treat people right with equity. So AI, if you don't govern it properly, if you don't have the right, I think AI does not have what do you call emotions or self-consciousness or so you have to really monitor that, build a framework so it's doesn't have the biasness in the decision, and also the data which feeds into it also is not biased. So ethics is very important. You have to treat people with respect, and otherwise, there are instances have happened in the past. So it's very important we build those framework, ethical framework, and monitor that with the responsible AI framework. This can be governed. This is a very important topic, and there are many institutions which try to put some governance in that. Europe is very strict on that. Similarly, US also has a process where it monitors the governance ethical model.
Just to add to what Ganesh said, just one thing that stands out to me, in terms of the ethics, and you think about people, right? People are going to be using AI tools. It's important to make sure that, you have the right ethical AI components in place. So you build that trust among the users and stakeholders within the business and the users of tools, right? And, things like privacy, and those things just internally within an organization, obviously on a bigger scale, thinking about, ethics and just, from a just people standpoint, right? I think it's really important to keep that in mind.
Yeah. In fact, Europe, the EU tells before even they authorize AI deployment, the company which is developing has to tell how the decisions are going to be made. In fact, get that buy-in, right? How the decisions are going to be driven, and even they hold the developers accountable before they even deploy those solutions. US, it's not as stringent as Europe because they want to promote more innovation, more. So there is a difference between those framework. Ultimately, you have to build trust with people, treating with all fairness.
On that theme of trust, I think generationally we've seen in the development of technologies that historically communities like Black communities, for example, have been underrepresented in the creation of these new technologies. What we need to do is be very proactive about making sure that the users of these technologies are being represented in the rooms where they're being designed, implemented, and before they're being rolled out into societies and communities.
That's great. And in terms of utilizing AI, what are the ethics for using it? I mean, for example, is taking, is telling ChatGPT to write a book or to write a response and then put that in an email or publish it as your own. Is that type of thing ethical, or is that type of thing plagiarism?
Working in academic spaces,
It's like plagiarism. Amazing.
Hear about this conversation on a regular basis, and the privilege of being in a non-traditional learning space is that we're very concerned with what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And what I mean by that is, are we trying to hold ourselves to arbitrary standards of how you have to achieve an outcome rather than that outcome being achieved at the end of the day? And we have to understand what skill sets, competencies, activities do we want to be able to be completed by individuals in isolation, removed from all technology. I believe that if we're looking at learners, for example, one, we have to understand, is there a reason why a person should be able to do this without AI augmentation, which is using AI tools to enhance your workflow or your output in some way? And if there is, clearly delineating that, but if there isn't, making sure that we are effectively educating people to use the tools in ways that are appropriate. Hopefully we can find a way to do that that credits people for their intellectual property, that gives people warning when an AI tool is used in the production of something. But generally, I don't think, like any technology, is implicitly cheating or ethically incorrect to use these tools.
Okay, great. Awesome. Just a quick note, if anyone has not muted, besides the speakers, of course, could you please mute? Because I think I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. So just check your microphones. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. On the topic of AI governance and regulation, I'll address this to Pete. Should AI be regulated? And who should oversee AI development and deployment? Should it be the government, private companies, a collective responsibility, or should it be the Wild West with complete liberty and freedom to evolve, much as biological life has adapted? So what do you think, Pete?
Tony, I think there's really not a perfect fit in the current place where we are today. I think it needs to be a collaborative effort between government, self-regulation, organizations, and basically, really, like I said, collective responsibility. I think right now there's so much that is changing so quickly with AI in general. If you look at the last year, if we sit here a year from today and we had another AI panel, this exact time next year, we'd be talking about all different things, right? That's how quickly things have been changing. So I think it's very tough to put frameworks and regulations in place when we don't even know where things are going to be going, right? By the time these regulations get put in place, it's things could just completely change. So because of the speed of change, I feel that it's a difficult thing to just have a one perfect fit across the board. So that's kind of what it needs to be, a blended approach, in terms of my opinion.
At least for the interim, for the next 6 months or a year. Because you're right, things are changing so fast, it's hard to know what to regulate when it could be different tomorrow.
To add to that context, I think it's useful to talk about what is currently the approach from our governing bodies. So a couple months ago, I was learning about what the U.S. Secretary of Commerce's stance on it was. So Gina Raimondo is our U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and they state that their primary objective is to enable innovation while mitigating these dangers. And key actions that they are trying to take is making sure that on the public side, we're staffed with researchers and engineers that can understand the best practices and cybersecurity requirements for these machine learning, artificial intelligence, quote unquote, systems that we're creating, while maintaining our global leadership in AI through strategic collaboration and onshoring of chip manufacturing, and then creating tech hubs through investment and workforce development, like I sit within in Detroit in Michigan Central's Innovation District.
Yeah, I'd like to add World Economic Forum talks about responsible AI governance, right? It's not one person or one body, it's a collective effort. Government, companies, industries, and cross collaboration with other peers. So collective effort. So be more responsible, take a proactive approach in governing the AI. That's coming from World Economic Forum.
That's awesome. And a slight adjunct to that question, it has to do with how people are in private industry are trying to drive focus. For example, lately we hear a lot about misinformation or disinformation or malinformation out there, especially during election years, but that comes to a hot topic. So what policies, frameworks, or standards should govern AI in that aspect? If we impose restrictions and limitations and bias, are we going to get the full benefit of artificial intelligence, or are we just going to get a different shade or color of what we already know? Any takers?
Generally, throughout our capitalist societies and structures, especially in the United States, we've argued that often regulation impedes innovation in the rate of innovation. But I think generationally, we've seen the consequences of not being proactive enough, not being informed enough from our public sectors in terms of the potential risk of technologies, and simultaneously not necessarily stopping it from the public side, but being very proactive and working with the private sector to understand how could these technologies impact our citizens, our youth, especially in the context of the past decade or so, with a generation growing up with smartphones and social media. That was a missed responsibility, I believe, on behalf of our governors to understand what the impacts of these technologies are and being proactive generationally to prevent consequences down the line. Hopefully we don't do the same thing. And right now, I think a big part of that conversation is understanding from private sector, what do you all project could be the impacts of these technologies that we are or are not sure will automate people's jobs or remove the need for people to complete certain tasks, and being proactive in saying, okay, this is the landscape. How do we upskill our current employee workforce to be prepared for these changes that are going to be made?
So what you're saying is how do we put AI in the context of what's going to uplift humanity the most, what's going to serve people, communities, what's going to help the life experience the most. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Absolutely. And being proactive and having that conversation across industries and across domains.
Excellent. I love that. I love that. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, one that's been pretty hot, in the last 5 or so years of generative AI. And I'll target this one to Asim. GPT, like ChatGPT, stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. Does true intelligence need to be trained?
I hope that we hold space for true intelligence to have the opportunity to be taught. I hope that we do that because I think we'd all appreciate that. I think we have academia as an entity and as a structure. I think we have to be trained in how to think for the most effective thinking communities, or not necessarily how to think in terms of beliefs, but how structures, patterns of thought for problem solving, for idea generation and creation. So I would say generally, yes, there's space for intelligence to need to be trained.
Oh, I would agree with that completely. Definitely, it helps to be taught, for sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of why we go to school.
Yeah. Tony, I'd like to add to that point, right? I read somewhere AI is smart, but humans have wisdom.
There you go.
Yeah, they have the wisdom and the experience, right?
Fiction for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you look at these Gen AI engines, engines like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Gemini, and things like that, what are the best ways for those to be trained, and what are the benefits and limitations of training them?
The easiest thing that you can start with is making sure that your data is useful, that your data is representative, that your data is unbiased. That's foundationally what has to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Definitely second that data is a key foundation, right? There are many instances companies are embarking, oh, our competitors are doing, let's get on the AI journey, right? Without having a strong use case or without strong foundation. So I sometimes tell the senior executives, yes, we are going to support, look at the AI, but let's make sure we have a strong foundation. Data is such a paramount, right? And because my philosophy is, do it once, but do it with strong foundation. Let's really look at that. And to Asim's point, data is such a foundation which will help train those models.
To add on, Tony, just what Asim and Ganesh just shared, I've actually personally gone through some struggles in business with building some generative AI tools where the knowledge or information that you're passing into these tools is not correct, right? And then what happens at that point? You're outputting results that are not accurate to the end users, right? And you lose trust in the end users of that tool. So that, in terms of building the belief in these AI tools, it's super important to ensure that you are having the correct truth, knowledge, information, and data that, getting, you don't really have the foundation set properly first. So really great point.
I think
That's
something
right.
that Pete just mentioned that I just thought about from what he said is that it's very similar to when you learn the design thinking pedagogy for how to go through the sequence of steps from empathizing with your user, making sure you collect understanding about what they're experiencing, what their true pain point is before you go into prototyping and ideation, and then the whole cycle. Generally, from the mentors that I have who run this at world-class companies, people want to skip that part. People want to skip the empathy part, the getting the information part, and they just want to go to ideation prototype very quickly as soon as possible. But you defeat the entire purpose fundamentally if you don't get the first step correct. And the first step here is, what is the quality of your data?
And I think that's so important too, that sometimes in the hype or the impetus to get things done as quick as possible, people don't necessarily ensure that they have good data going in. It's like garbage in, garbage out. We all know that expression, right? And so if we're going to have our data and put it through crimson sun colored sunglasses into our AI engines, we shouldn't be surprised if our answers come out all looking like they're red. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's very important to that. And also, when AI gives back, or Gen AI gives back its answers, it's amazing how confident Gen AI can be when its answers are wrong. And so,
Incredibly, extremely.
yeah.
They will lie to you with more confidence than anybody ever.
Oh yeah, well that might be a human trait we need to wean out of that. But anyone wants to try that, just give a complex math problem to Gen AI and watch it give the wrong answer and insist that it's the right answer. So um, let's see, how can businesses benefit from using a large language model or a small language model? I'll target this to Pete, since I think you have some experience with that. What are the differences and when are they appropriate to use?
Yeah, I think the most simplistic way to think about a large language model, you're looking at a bigger, broad, cross-domain set of data and information that's being passed into the model itself. If you think about a small language model, it's really something that's more specific, maybe industry related or company related, domain specific, I guess is probably the best way to phrase that. Just an example, like I can kind of think about if you were to have like product information available, right? If an LLM might get support like ideation and conceptual like exploration. If you're thinking about product knowledge or product development knowledge for a specific small language model, you'd be looking something more like specific aspects of the specific design or optimization for specific products in an industry. And I work in the furniture industry right now in retail or wireless retail previously. Thinking about like if it were cell phone products, that would be in your small language model, some type of data and information around that type of product versus just products in general across the board or in the furniture industry, something specific to your living room furniture, your sofas and dining room, like those types of things. So you can kind of think about how do we develop products for that space specifically. So like just some examples there, but I think that's the way I typically think about it. And the same goes for knowledge. If you're looking at knowledge, like if you were to go to ChatGPT, your large language model across the board using OpenAI's models there, if I were building a knowledge base for an internal, horizontally used generative AI application for an organization, it would be more domain specific to knowledge that within that organization specifically.
On that exact concept applied more broadly, in preparation for this learning, because we will always have to continually learn this subject, in trying to answer the question of how is AI useful, came across this report from Harvard Business School, and I'm actually dropping it in the chat, and it found really interesting results. So they worked with Boston Consulting Group, and they took 758 highly skilled strategy consultants, and they wanted to see how would AI augmentation or applying tools like ChatGPT change the results of their consultants' work. And so they had groups that had no AI access, had ChatGPT 4 access, and this was about a year ago. So already in this past year, there's been 2 new models of ChatGPT released, but then there is one group with GPT 4 access and prompt engineering overview education. So the results, when their challenge was to, against their experimental group, design a shoe product and go through the full design process from product description through to the go-to-market strategy. For those who had AI, the rate of completion was accelerated. So those with the AI training and AI tool completed 93% of their task. Those with no AI tools completed 82%. But we know that speed isn't the most important. It's what's the quality of your work. So for the consultants that used AI, they performed 38% better than those without AI. And then for those who had AI and the training performed 42.5% better than those without AI. And when we say better, what does that mean? They were scored based on the scoring that they would receive based on performance reviews, essentially from a board who decides if they get bonuses at the end of the year. And that was their incentive. So the top 20% that performed at the highest level would get that greater recognition from that board. So that was fascinating to see those results. But those were applications where there was a problem set that was within the scope of what was considered the frontier for the capability of the model. But then when it went outside of the frontier, which was basically having to use qualitative and quantitative data and find the correlations between those data sets, those with AI tools performed worse and did not take the time to evaluate if the AI was giving them good information or not.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Again, if you haven't muted, go ahead and mute yourself. I've got some sound play going on here. So let's move on to customer service. That tends to be a big thing with businesses. You know, how can we keep our customers happy? How can we use AI in customer service? So I'll target this towards Ganesh. What are some good ways that AI can be used in customer service? And what are the potential wins, but also what are some of the potential pitfalls we need to be concerned about?
Yeah.
Ganesh?
Yeah, this has been a lot of development in this area, especially using AI. So like I've seen Microsoft Copilot being used to handle the customer queries, compliance, and the support. And largely it does a pretty good job when it comes to the customer complaints. The challenge comes when the customer some complexity comes in, right? So the AI models are not handled complex situations. And also the customer might be sharing their emotions. I'm having a very hard day and I'm really, like frustrated. So AI does not pick that up. It just give a template answer. So so what we do is we have some human, like basically some supervisors monitor those chat. We don't want to be unattended. Though the chat GPT, the Copilot uses those customer as a service, but also a human is monitoring those chat, look for the patterns, and so there is somebody can intervene and really help the customer. So it's good, but I see that there's a lot of development happening and also training those environment. But one thing we have done in one of the past companies is having some human monitor those chat, at least bring in their human touch. Otherwise, customer will walk out with frustrated. Oh, this is like purely a machine is talking to me.
And that brings us, or broaches upon another topic of AI, which is emotional recognition. I mean, it's one thing to be able to write an algorithm to look to see if a person's response has a bad word in it, where you can maybe get the idea that they're a little irate. But are they saying that, or is it a quote? And so being able to interpret the emotional state of the client is, I've seen software out there try to do it, but I agree. I think we still got some work to do in that regard. Does anyone else want to chime in quick?
I'll chime in quickly, and Ganesh is spot on, just with the sentiment of, it's very tough to judge that sentiment from the customer in a chatbot or in that type of experience. I think one of the things that in general you're thinking about, and I'm just thinking about the organization and company that I'm with right now, and even some things in my past life with in the T-Mobile world, you have generative AI tools that you're using to maybe supplement existing call centers and those types of environments, right? So like that blended approach between a call center and having that generative AI, having the agents or supervisors available is extremely important. I think some of the areas where you really can benefit with the AI tools are some of the things that are more, simplistic in terms of the things that customer may need help with. And is that something with like maybe modifying an order, changing a delivery date, requesting, tracking information on a product that they ordered. Those types of specific things, I think, can help handle a lot of maybe those tier 1 questions and, that you may not need to speak to someone with. So I think that's one of the things I kind of recognize, just really helping with like orders and those types of things, or if there were any type of open cases or warranty claims and things like that. I think that's where there's a lot of value in these tools, and they're just improving over time.
I think that's really important, and that actually kind of segues into a question I was going to ask you, Pete, about agent AI or these bots, that we've experienced. I mean, we've all probably had experiences trying to get help on some kind of a company website with an e-chat window, only to observe that we're going around in circles and that we're dealing with an AI bot that really can't operate outside of its programming. So how can we use AI agents how can we improve them to optimize the customer experience and to speed up problem resolution?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about when you're building these agents, whatever, if it's Microsoft Copilot, if it's another third-party tool that you're using, or if it's some type of application that has a built-in AI components, that you have the ability to uh, to be able to monitor, the conversations and the questions that are happening in some type of analytic way, right? Because that's really the only way that you can maybe improve the responses and it's like any other software application. It's development, it's logic, right? In a combination with generative AI and large language models, small language models, like we talked about, rolling into that. I think it's important to be able to do analysis on what's actually happening and the results that are being returned to that end user, which is the customer. And then taking those analytics and measurements and then doing, having actionable things that you kind of take from that as takeaways. I think that's important. So unfortunately, it is probably a constant review and then adjustment. I think that would have to happen really to improve the experience for the end user.
Yeah, I'd like to add one industry that Gartner recent report talks about agent AI is one of the top emerging trend for 2025, agent AI. And there also imagine one agent AI talking to another agent, right? Like with customer service talking to the billing agent talking to the accounting agent. So the multiple agent talking, and there Gartner is projecting as the top trend for 25.
And in addition to this concept, I just wanted to bring two key words in this conversation of agentic AI and where industry is trying to move these systems towards, which is to be more adaptive and more autonomous. So when we talk about AI-ness, those are two main qualities that we're looking for. How adaptive is the system? How autonomous is the system in completing the objective with the desired outcomes?
Yeah, and Asim, to your point, the system should be able to improve, right? The right system should be able to improve based upon those results and be able to adapt. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Agreed. So it sounds like we still have some work to do. But Asim kind of offered a segue into the next question I was going to ask. And we kind of broached on this a little bit earlier, but most people would agree that technology should exist and be used for the advancement of the human condition or to provide for a better human experience. So how can AI be leveraged for the social good to address such things as poverty, education, hunger, homelessness, or even disaster response?
For me, what comes to mind is generally I don't have faith that it will be applied to that, but I think that we can use the subsets and the actual underlying technologies, concepts that create what we think about as AI systems like data science, like machine learning, to make better decisions that are optimized, to make better decisions about our predictions. And one thing that I know the students that I teach are very excited about is the potential to have individualized tutors in their learning, to be able to have, if they like Spider-Man, to say Miles Morales from the Spider-Man movies is my computer science teacher and side by side with me, teaching me these functions in a culturally relevant way. That is one of the main ways that I see a marked difference to advance equity in spaces where, for example, computer science teachers are almost non-existent in our country. They are almost even more non-existent if they are of color. So being able to have in every community that has internet access and access to computers, the ability to use these tools to, one, take the burden off of our under-resourced teachers and understaffed teachers, and two, create more personalized, bespoke experiences for learners.
So it's like having a personalized tutor or a TA when you're trying to go through that tough class.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. So, okay, so we talked a little bit about education. I'll address this next question to Pete, because we kind of started to go into it just a second ago, having to do with multimodal AI. And essentially, human beings are multimodal, natural, intelligent beings, meaning that we take input from all of our senses, and then we come up with a story about life or our environment and how to proceed. So how can AI systems process and integrate data from multiple sources, such as text, images, audio, or even other agent, chatbots, in order to make more informed decisions?
I think there's a lot happening with that. And you think about right now, if you there's plenty of tools out there that can build images from text. So we're giving text to to a generative AI tool, and then outputs an image. I know that there's a ton of tools. ChatGPT can do it. Microsoft Copilot can do it. You talk about all the different generative AI tools out there. But I think the reverse side of that, if you think about, I was recently part of a group that was technology and AI panel, and I was talking to someone that's doing product work with Walmart right now, and you talk about new products coming in from Walmart, like third-party sellers, like and even if Amazon, right, has the third-party sellers that also work with them. But for what Walmart was doing is basically having the ability to take those product images and then generate really good descriptions from those images, right? So maybe identifying what type of product it is, and then if there's characteristics of that product. So I think that image to text, like that is one business use case that I can kind of bring up it pretty quickly. Another thing to think about, and I'm in the furniture industry. So another example that I would say, which I know there's some research that we're doing right now, is what if you were to take a picture of your room in your house and say, all right, what furniture would I want to put in this room? So you have a picture, and then potentially taking the information from that picture, maybe size of the room, color, the style, and then taking some additional text or context, combination of a photo and text, and then having the AI generate and give you a recommendation in terms of what products you would want to have in that room, right? So something like that. I think there's a lot of outside of the box things like that right now that are kind of coming into play, that we're going to see more of over the next year. I know that I personally have kind of delved into some things and just some testing, a lot of things with really, even taking a PDF file, right? If you take a PDF file of a resume or maybe a picture of a document, and then taking that document and putting it into text, I think there's a ton of use cases out there, Tony. We're just probably getting started in terms of what's actually coming, though, to be honest.
I would probably think so. There's so much you can do. Like, I was listening to what you said about taking a picture, and then what would be an artistic way to redo my room in a modern look, or maybe a classical or a country bucolic fashion.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot going on there. I think one of the fascinating areas, and I'll address this one to Ganesh, is the idea of AI and digital twins. And so a digital twin is essentially a computer model of a component, an entire product, a system, or a process. Examples could be like a new car concept, or chemistry, or a weather model like they did in the movie Day After Tomorrow, or even digital cities like those being used by Singapore and Shanghai. So how can AI be leveraged to best predict reality from digital twins, and where are the best opportunities for digital twins, and how can they provide the most value and impact for society?
Yeah, this is a great question. I've seen personally application of digital twin in manufacturing environment. With digital twin is basically an virtual replica of a physical asset, right? Could be machines or like large machines, and they can actually simulate, they can troubleshoot, they can train the people. In my previous company, so we had a digital twin of some imaging systems, which can actually go and help apply in the healthcare industry in the hospitals. So we were troubleshooting, training those models in terms of replica. It's a virtual replica of a physical asset, right? So it will help in fine tuning and doing a lot of simulation before the end product. So well, how does it help? It helps my rework, and we can fine tune all the design aspects. Imagine applying the same thing in a physical, then that will be costly and more time consuming. So we also had systems where you can go and apply in the airline industry as part of the maintenance. Before they give the plane takes off, they do a kind of a manual check, right? All the technical clearance. So there is a physical equipments will go and test that, but how about we test that in a lab with a digital twin, and you can simulate everything. It again expedites the process. So there are many applications I've seen personally in the healthcare industry, manufacturing environment. So I think I can talk for next 1 hour about digital twin. So I'm also conscious about the time for Q&A, but digital twin is a great application area, especially with the advance of AI. Digital twin, it can have a big impact on especially in the manufacturing industries.
I'd also surface, in addition to that, when we think about the world of autonomous vehicles, using digital tools to try to simulate as many possibilities that these vehicles could be in is a crucial application of that as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, I agree totally. And of course, this goes back to my early days of trying to, do chemistry, with AI before taking the expense to make it and go through all the expensive reactions. So I'm totally with you on that one. And this kind of segues into another question I'll address towards Asim about using digital twins or AI for urban planning. We've always found that models are a valuable way to understand and glean insight about the world around us, and to inspire creative thought and to promote knowledge and learning from various perspectives. So how can AI be used to model and improve urban mechanisms, for planning and just general living?
That's something that I'm extremely excited for. And when I think about the best outcomes of applying these technologies, one of them is creating spaces that we can thrive in through our understanding of our knowledge and our ability to be proactive with data. And I'm very excited because in Detroit, something I'm trying to advocate for is making sure that we set up our data systems so that we can have these higher scale, more adaptive and autonomous intelligence systems making good decisions either agentically where appropriate, or just helping us as policymakers and decision makers be better informed. So specific examples of how these underlying technologies like data science and machine learning are being used. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, they're able to reduce traffic congestion by up to 30%, travel time by 20%, and fuel use by 16% by modeling congestion relief strategies in 2021 within certain routes. In Tel Aviv, they were able to project a 60% reduction in accident probabilities by doing digital twinning, which at the end of the day, if you don't have a visual user interface for that, is really just statistics and mathematical modeling. And then for just general reduction of maintenance through proactive maintenance, McKinsey reports that you can reduce that by up to 40% and boost asset uptime by up to 5 to 10%. And this is all within the last couple of years. So I'm very excited in my career to help cities set the foundation that they need to apply these technologies to derive these benefits for their citizens.
And anyone who's ever been stuck in a traffic jam, I'm sure would agree with you.
So thank you to our facilitator and to our panelists. So we do have a question. So we're getting late. We're close to the 8 o'clock hour. A question did come through from Eric Wohl. The question is, do you have an example of an organization who is embracing AI to reinvent core work while successfully creating that safe, ethical, and innovative environment, and not using it as a way to heavily cut costs through layoffs? Do you have an example of an organization who is embracing AI to reinvent core work, using it while successfully creating that safe, ethical, and innovative environment, not using it as a way to heavily cut costs through layoffs.
Something that I'm excited for again is, for me, the best things that I'm seeing right now are in education. So Khan Academy, which is a renowned organization for helping students learn when their teachers aren't teaching them how they would like to be taught, and their approach to being cautious with the technology, integrating all stakeholders in the decision making around the technology. From what I can observe, I'm excited for the impacts of what they'll create. And they're not striving to replace teachers, they're striving to help teachers and learners when our education system, especially in the States, is so underfunded. Oh, Jen, you're muted.
Jen, you're muted.
Thank you. At this time, the Q&A window is open. So if you have a question for Tony, Asim, Pete, or Ganesh, you can feel free to raise your virtual hand, or you can also put your question in the chat box. I want to be mindful because I know we are nearing the 8 o'clock hour. Also, if you think of a question later on this evening or tomorrow, please feel free to send us an email at members@vpcircle.com with your question, and we will get you that answer. Wait a
So
couple.
while we're waiting for a hand, I don't see any hands. Would it be okay to ask the fun closing question?
Yes.
Or you want to hold off on that one?
No, this is a good time.
Okay, so this question has to do with human AI collaboration. And, I'm sure a lot of us have grown up with movies like, Terminator and Matrix and Space Odyssey 2001. But in the movie Atlas, Jennifer Lopez's character has a computer brain link, which is used symbiotically to control an automaton space pod or warrior, where the intellectual and processing levels were greater than the sum of the computer and Lopez's character. The computer argued that although it is not biological, it has still regarded itself as alive based on other criteria. So is this kind of collaboration possible? And if not, what kind of technological advancements need to occur for this to happen? The floor is open.
Scary. Do we want it to happen? I don't know.
Good point. Good point. What happens when computer intelligence surpasses that of humanity? Do we want that to happen, or should we put in steps to prevent that from happening? Or what's the answer?
There is no single answer.
Right.
I think it's safe to say that all that stuff that we're seeing right now is Hollywood and movies, and that's not anywhere near going to happen anytime soon. Is that a pretty safe statement to say?
I can agree with that.
I hope that's the case, Tony. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of Hollywood out there, and I threw that fun question in there because A, I like to have fun, even though I'm a tech guy, but B, also it goes back to expectations of AI. If someone knows nothing about AI, they might think, well, this is where AI is right now, and they can get scared. But I think it's important to realize that Hollywood does what it does best, and it comes up with these fictitious circumstances, and they're nowhere near reality. And so just going forward, if you're a CEO or a VP or someone looking to integrate AI, that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get mostly what our panelists discussed today, which is a lot of machine learning, pattern recognition. It's fundamentally data, but it's not yet intelligent. We're a long way away from that. So with that, if anyone wanted to close up with anything, I think we had a good session tonight.
I would agree. Any final remarks from the panel?
No, it's a really great, right? The world of AI is very fascinating, right? And every time you hear about advancement, so it's always fun to see it. And of course, we have to look at what is the business point of view, what is the use case, right? and what are we trying to solve, what are we trying to add value. So when I'm representing a company, I always ask, how do I really adapt, how I can help solve a business problem or a challenge, how I can really drive the outcomes, right? But it's really fascinating. We are in a world of a lot of advancements, and just enjoy the ride, but same time use all the governance, cautious, and the equity. All that is important. Have a framework, have a governance.
I think Ganesh well said. I think for me, most important thing to keep in mind, because this is changing so quickly, is, think about your end user first. And I always try to start with that mindset, the end user experience first. With these tools changing and AI, a lot of the systems that even third-party tools have some level of AI built into them. Just think about the experience that your end users are going to have, and start there with coupling the beginning part, the business requirements that Ganesh just spoke about, and then the rest of that, you kind of figure out what the middle looks like there. But I also would recommend continuous improvement and learning. In terms of what's changing with AI, if we have this panel next year at the same time, we're going to see much different, in terms of advancements and changes and things coming. I'm expecting to see much more this upcoming year. So I would just a couple takeaways from me.
Yeah. And for myself, we saw in the chat somebody mentioned, if it can be done, it will be done. It is a matter of time, in relation to Tony's fun/scary question. And what I think very heavily about, under this structure that we're within, where the responsibility of corporations is to make returns to their shareholders, the most prominent organization within the world of AI, who's creating the large language model that's taken over the world, was started to be the safe, ethical, cautious organization. But the market is enticing. Money is enticing. What I'm curious about is, from a humanist perspective, how can we create a new generation that can be more concerned with the ramifications of the technology that we create, while still being capable of creating useful innovations that improve quality of life. And conversations like this are crucial for that to happen.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise with us and the rest of the panelists. I think that there's a lot of great use that can come out of AI, but wisdom is going to let us know and how to create that usefulness. So thanks again to Jen for putting this on and for bringing this all together, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you, Tony, Asim, Pete, Ganesh. I thought this was really, really great. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise and experience with us. If you enjoyed, what you heard tonight, if you thought this was interesting, please consider joining us for another VP Circle event. You can access the full calendar of our events this season by going to vpcircle.com and then clicking on What's On. We are programming, we've programmed 21 events for this season between now and May. Part 2 of this discussion series will be held on January 28th. I think that's a Tuesday at 7 p.m. So feel free to go to the website and register for the next event. Additionally, in addition to, so most of our events are virtual, but we are holding our first in-person circle meetup. We call them circle meetups on January 16th in Philadelphia at the beautiful Fitler Club. So if you're going to be anywhere near Philadelphia, I know we do have a large population in the tri-state, New York, Philly, Delaware, DC. We sent out a survey to folks in that tri-state area to say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think we should do this? And overwhelmingly, the feedback was, yes, we should do this. So we're going to start popping up or holding VP Circle meetups in major metropolitan cities. And we're starting with Philadelphia in January on the 16th at 6:30 p.m. So consider joining us, or just wait for us to come to your city. But anyway, just did want to share that. So so next steps, if you're not a member of VP Circle and you're interested in getting our newsletter that has all of our events listed, if you're interested in getting invitations to events, Please request to join us on LinkedIn. Also, activate your membership at vpcircle.com and then click on Become a Member. Complete your member profile. Just, name, city, state, what is your job title, what company do you work for? We will approve your profile and we will add it to our member networking directory. We'll then begin sending you information on upcoming events that we're holding. And then finally, if you're interested in learning more about our member networking directory, we do have a directory that some of our executives have decided they were interested in purchasing it to help them to support, in order to help them to support their networking goals and objectives. If you're interested in having full access to the directory, let us know. It's a very cool software. Just send us an email at members@vpcircle.com. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for AI and a changing business landscape, what executives need to know. And hopefully we see you in January, but hopefully we see you before that at another event. So good night, everybody, and thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Night.